Hello and welcome. I'm James Azimohan. You're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. Russia and Ukraine exchange overnight strikes while the IOC moves to ease restrictions on Russian athletes ahead of the 2028 Olympics. US President Donald Trump says the United States will give a license to Ukraine for Patriot missiles. And US strikes Iran as President Donald Trump declares an end to the Memorandum of Understanding with Tehran. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged fresh overnight attacks, with Kyiv hit by missiles and Russian energy facilities reportedly targeted by drones. Local officials say a Russian strike on Kyiv early on Wednesday killed one woman, injured at least 2 people, and triggered fires in storage and non-residential buildings. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Drone Forces commander said Kyiv had hit 9 more Russian Shadow Fleet tankers. Ukraine also reported drone attacks on Russia's Saratov oil refinery and a petrochemical plant in Tatarstan. Now, beyond the damage caused by the fighting, people in Kyiv are facing difficult choices as they try to rebuild a sense of stability in their daily lives. Here's more.
Residents in Kyiv are deciding whether to stay in the Ukrainian capital after a deadly Russian missile and drone attack destroyed part of a residential apartment block. On Tuesday, residents living near the damaged building said they faced a difficult choice between staying in Kyiv or leaving their homes, comparing daily life to playing Russian roulette.
So what are we going to do? What options do we have? There are options to leave the country, but for me, those aren't options. Our country is our country. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Russian roulette, or whatever they call it. That's how we're living right now.
Even today I was talking to my son that it would be nice to move to somewhere out of Kyiv, at least to some village. But I'm tied to my job, to my work. I haven't got an online job.
The attack was part of a wider wave of Russian missile and drone strikes on Monday that killed at least 28 people across Kyiv and the surrounding region, according to Ukrainian officials. Ukraine's military says it was unable to intercept any of the 23 ballistic missiles launched during Monday's assault, highlighting growing concerns about the country's air defenses. Elsewhere, speaking at the NATO Defense Industry Forum during the NATO summit in Ankara, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on European allies to accelerate the development of a homegrown anti-ballistic missile system.
Now, Western efforts to limit Russia's oil revenues are putting renewed focus on the shipping companies still carrying Russian crude and on how much money they have made under the G7 price cap system.
Greek shipping companies have earned billions of dollars from transporting Russian oil, despite Western efforts to limit Moscow's energy revenues. That's according to a Financial Times analysis, which says Greek ship owners made at least $3.8 billion from the trade over the past 3 years. The report says Dynacom Tankers, Stealth Maritime, and the Onassis Group were among the biggest earners under the G7 price cap system of $60 per barrel. Since July 2023, Dynacom has earned more than $915 million from Russian crude shipments. Onassis Group's Olympic Shipping and Management earned at least $404 million, while Stealth Maritime and Polembros Shipping each made more than $200 million. The report also recalls tensions between Athens and Kyiv after Ukraine briefly listed several Greek tanker companies as international sponsors of war in 2023 before removing them following pressure from the Greek government. The trade is permitted as long as oil from Russia is sold below the G7 price cap, but enforcement has faced criticism. The Financial Times says its estimate covers 389 million barrels shipped by Greek companies, while further cargoes were excluded because pricing data was unavailable. The report also says 8 of the 20 companies earning the most from Russian oil shipments since June 2023 are Greek. The The findings come as the US and European Union step up efforts to tighten sanctions on Moscow's energy revenues.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that the United States will give a license to Ukraine for Patriot missiles, as he says both Russia and Ukraine want to see the war settled. During talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump said the United States would provide the necessary know-how, adding that Ukraine could manufacture these systems quickly. He also said both Russia and Ukraine want to see the war come to an end. Zelensky has repeatedly called for more Patriot interceptors, which are considered essential for defending against ballistic missile attacks.
So, look, he wants to get it done, and we're going to get it done.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has renewed his push for American control of Greenland, saying the Arctic island is vital to U.S. security. His remarks at the NATO summit drew an immediate rejection from Denmark and reignited a long-running dispute within the alliance. News correspondent Anita Sharma has more.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where U.S. President Donald Trump once again puts Greenland at the center of transatlantic tensions. Speaking alongside Turkish President Erdogan at the NATO summit in Ankara, Trump said Greenland should, quote, be controlled by the United States, not by Denmark, arguing the island is critical to American national security due to its strategic location in the Arctic. He also claimed Denmark failed to invest enough in Greenland while Russia and China expand their presence in the region, and that this issue has harmed U.S. ties with NATO. The remarks were immediately rejected by Denmark's Prime Minister. Mette Frederiksen said Greenland is not for sale, and there are no plans during the summit to discuss issues concerning the High North, the Arctic, or Greenland. The renewed dispute comes at an awkward moment for NATO. Denmark is one of the alliance's founding members, while Greenland hosts a U.S.-operated space base, an essential hub for missile warning, space surveillance, and Arctic defense. The dispute has persisted since Trump's return to office, with Washington holding regular talks with Danish and Greenlandic officials, but making little progress. As NATO leaders try to present a united front on defense spending in Russia, Trump's latest comments risk overshadowing that message by reopening one of the alliance's most sensitive sovereignty disputes. And with competition in the Arctic intensifying, Greenland's strategic importance is only growing, making this debate unlikely to disappear anytime soon. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has renewed calls for American control of Greenland, questioned NATO's role in the Middle East, and suggested changes to U.S. military deployments in Europe. The remarks come as NATO plans a major increase in defense spending and considers the future of its security strategy. Joining us now is Enrique Cusero, political analyst, joining us from Madrid, Spain. Good to have you, sir. Now, what's the biggest message Donald Trump is sending to NATO right now?
Thank you. Great to be here. Main message here is Donald Trump wants to, I think, he wants to give some sort of feeling that he is alone, that he is the one who's putting more chips on the table, and nobody is gonna see his play, or nobody's gonna help him or try to back him, right? Mm-hmm. So, and from some part, I have to say I agree with him, because of course the United States is the country that is given the most to the NATO, but on the other side, from my point of view, you can't treat your allies like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to get your thoughts on this. If the United States reduces its military presence in Europe, who would feel the impact first?
Here we have to consider that it's not new for the United States, and it's not new for the President of the United States. There's a lack of interest, if you want to call it that way, about Europe. And by this I mean that already back in 2008, Barack Obama realized that the main trouble, the main problem, the main issue of the United States wasn't in the Atlantic anymore. It was in the Pacific, and right now it remains that the main concern for the United States is in the Pacific. It's China, it's North Korea, it's whatever. It's the menace over Taiwan, and is the weakness or the need for support coming from Japan, South Korea, or even Australia. So for a long time, the United States have been disguising this, concealing this, trying to make feeling Europe sort of needed in some way. But right now, Donald Trump has just cut through it, and if it wasn't because things like Ukraine or Iran, the main focus is considering how what is the way to act for Donald Trump. Right now, Europe would be completely impelled to defend itself, and taking charge and taking consideration, taking care of the European issues by itself. Right now is not that way, because I think Donald Trump made two fundamental errors, which are trying to be the savior of Ukraine, doing nothing. They're trying to be vigilante in Iran, accomplish really little for whatever Iranians or whatever the Iran government is willing to. I don't want to say to offer, or I don't want to say to give, but even more is willing to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And right now, Donald Trump is trying to find a way out, and one of those ways, outing him from the mess in the Middle East and in Europe, is trying to accuse his allies, mm-hmm. the United States allies in the NATO, of doing nothing.
Yeah, let's stick on that for a second. Trump says he's disappointed that NATO stayed out of military operations against Iran. Is he asking the alliance now to play a different role beyond Europe?
By the book, the NATO, the European allies in NATO, they don't have to do anything of whatever Donald Trump is asking them to do, because the United States, in a unilateral way, they went into war against Iran with Israel, but it was completely the own willing of the United States getting into that war. So there were no menace, there were no threat over any of the NATO countries. So you can invoke the treaty in order to be supported by the United States. If you want the support of if you, being the United States, want the support of one of your allies, you have to ask it, and try to ask it in a very, I don't want to say candid way, but yes, in a very formal, and try to be as much as educated as you can be. But as I said before, the NATO allies, no European country got any obligation for getting into that war. That will make Donald Trump's life easier, lots of easier, really easier. But right now, that decision was taken by Donald Trump in the Situation Room at the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu one day two years ago. So 2 years ago, it looks like so long, but whatever. It was taken in Washington. No requesting any sort of aid or help or even information or advice from the NATO allies. He can't right now saying, okay, you've been you commit treason against me, because NATO doesn't work that way.
That was Enrique Cosero, political analyst, joining us from Madrid, Spain. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, staying on the summit, another key moment was the announcement to lift sanctions on Turkey after US President Donald Trump met President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on the sidelines. The sanctions were imposed in 2020 after Ankara purchased Russian S-400 air defense systems, leading to its removal from the F-35 fighter jet program. Trump also said a decision on a possible F-35 sale to Turkey would be made, with trade expected to feature in the talks. Speaking before the meeting, Trump explained why he believes the sanctions should be lifted.
We're going to be taking the sanctions off. Okay? I don't want him to waste his time answering that question because we're working very closely with Marco Rubio, a very famous man, great Secretary of State, and with Scott Bessent, and with Pete and everybody else. We're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that. Okay? We don't want to sanction friends. It's very simple.
Now, the United States, Japan, and South Korea have signed a trilateral agreement in Ankara to speed up the use of small modular nuclear reactors in partner countries. The U.S. has pledged more than $10 million to support safe SMR deployment in the region. Washington says the cooperation supports energy security and wider security interests, while also promoting nuclear safety standards. The deal was signed on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Turkey and will initially focus on the Indo-Pacific region. We'll continue with the main stories of the day after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Now, a major escalation in the Gulf has heightened fears of a wider regional conflict and renewed concerns over global energy supplies. The United States carried out airstrikes against several targets in Iran on Tuesday, hours after revoking a waiver allowing the sale of Iranian oil.
The latest US strikes on Iran were absolutely necessary. That's according to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who, speaking at the NATO summit in Ankara, blamed Iran for violating the ceasefire. Rutte said the US response was both justified and essential.
I also expect allies today to discuss Iran. I expect allies today to reconfirm that Iran should never, ever get its hand on a nuclear capability. And secondly, that the principle of the freedom of navigation, so the Strait of Hormuz, completely opening up again is a sine qua non, is crucial for all 32 allies.
Iran condemns the latest US strikes on Iran, calling them a violation of the Memorandum of Understanding signed with Washington last month. Iranian state media says that Qeshm Island, Bandar Abbas and Sirik were hit, with several people reportedly injured by shrapnel. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Baqir Kalibaf, has accused Washington of repeatedly violating the ceasefire agreement. In a social media post, he cited the military strikes, renewed oil sanctions and threats of further attacks, saying Iran would not give in to pressure. The comments come after the United States launched major military strikes on Iran on Tuesday, accusing Tehran of attacking 3 commercial oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has not directly claimed responsibility. US Central Command, or CENTCOM, says American forces struck more than 80 targets, including more than 60 small boats operated by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, along with missile launch sites and command centers. The US says the operation was intended to protect commercial shipping and impose heavy costs on those responsible for attacking vessels in international waters. The latest escalation follows Washington's decision to revoke a waiver that had temporarily eased some oil sanctions on Iran. Tehran says that move also breached last month's agreement and accused the United States of acting in bad faith. Iran's foreign ministry said Washington would be responsible for the consequences of what it called repeated breaches of the agreement. It added that Tehran would take any measures it considers necessary to protect its national interests and security. Qatar and Saudi Arabia have also condemned the attacks on the tankers, saying vessels from their countries were targeted while crossing the Strait of Hormuz, and both blamed Iran.
Now, still in the Middle East, Iran's religious city of Mashhad is gearing up to hold the burial service of the former supreme leader Ayatollah Said Ali Khamenei on Thursday. News correspondent Tura Shiralilu reports from the city, where the late leader's body is expected to be laid at the shrine of the 8th Imam of Shia Muslims.
Authorities here in the northeast city of Mashhad are carrying out the final preparations to host the public farewell and burial rituals of the late supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Said Ali Khamenei, together with members of his household who were killed in the Israeli-US attacks on the 28th of February. With a population of more than 3 million, Mashhad is Iran's second largest city after the capital Tehran and is home to the mausoleum of Imam Reza, one of the most revered saints of Shia Islam. The week-long huge processions, which began last Saturday in Tehran, continued in the Iranian city of Qom and the Iraqi cities of Najaf and Karbala, where the shrines of the first and third Shia Imams are located. The rituals will end on Thursday here in Mashhad, the hometown of the former leader of Iran, by laying his body to rest at the shrine of the 8th Imam of Shiites. Ayatollah Khamenei shaped the domestic and foreign policies of the post-Islamic Revolution Iran longer than any other political figure of his generation. His extended funeral rituals are seen as a tribute to his legacy, as well as a demonstration of post-war resilience and continuity, resulting in the leadership of his son, Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei. In the meantime, Tehran has been signaling its defiance in the standoff with the US and Israel, showcasing its regional power by transferring the funeral rites on Wednesday to neighboring Iraq. Tura Shiralilu from Mashhad, Foreign News.
Now, French far-right leader Marine Le Pen has announced she will stand in the 2027 presidential election after an appeals court reduced her ban on holding public office. The court upheld her conviction for misusing European Parliament funds, but shortened the ban, allowing her to run. Le Pen, who has unsuccessfully contested the presidency 3 times, also said she would appeal the ruling to France's highest court. Her decision comes as her National Rally Party leads opinion polls ahead of next year's election. Now, United Nations Aid Chief Tom Fletcher has arrived in Venezuela for a 4-day visit following the devastating earthquakes that struck the country nearly 2 weeks ago. During his trip, he will assess humanitarian needs and meet survivors, aid workers, and government officials. The World Food Programme says it plans to provide food assistance to 500,000 people affected by the disaster, while UN says Venezuela's 2026 humanitarian appeal has risen from $115 million to $300 million since the quakes. The International Olympic Committee has provisionally lifted its suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee on Tuesday. The move marks a significant step forward towards Russia's reintegration ahead of the Los Angeles 2028 Games.
Russia's athletes could soon be back in international competitions, including the Olympic qualifiers in Los Angeles in 2028. It's after the International Olympic Committee provisionally lifted the suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee. The ROC had been suspended since October 2023 after incorporating sports bodies from Russian-controlled regions of Ukraine. The IOC says that issue has now been resolved, but no decision has been made on whether Russia's flag, anthem or colours can be used at the Games. Restrictions on Russian state officials and on holding IOC events in Russia also remain in place. IOC President Kirsty Coventry says the decision is aimed at giving athletes a path back to the Olympics.
We wanted to ensure all athletes have the possibility to compete at the Olympic Games and not be held responsible for their government's actions. And I believe that this is what this decision speaks to. It allows for Russian athletes to take part in sport competitions, but we've also been very clear that we do not condone any violence and war around the world, and we will continue with that stance.
The IOC says international federations will decide how to move forward in their own competitions. Coventry said anti-doping safeguards will remain important before Russian athletes return to major events. However, Ukraine's foreign ministry criticised the decision, saying it sends a deeply concerning signal while Moscow continues its war. It called on governments hosting international sporting events and sports federations not to allow Russian state symbols at competitions.
China's foreign ministry has wrapped up a week-long tour in Nordic countries. The visit was aimed at strengthening China's engagement with Northern Europe and comes ahead of the China-EU summit on trade, security and international affairs. Manu Makdum has more from Beijing.
China's relations with Nordic countries have grown steadily over the past 2 decades, especially in trade, green technology, renewable energy, maritime cooperation and innovation. The 7-day tour saw Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi deepen Beijing's relations with Denmark, Sweden, Finland and Norway. He held talks with political leaders and foreign ministers on issues including bilateral ties, economic and trade cooperation, green development, climate change, scientific and technological innovation, and international and regional security. During the meetings, both sides acknowledged the importance of maintaining open communication despite differences over issues such as Russia's war in Ukraine, European security, and China's relations with Russia. Nordic leaders also encouraged China to play a constructive role in promoting peace efforts in Ukraine, while discussions covered Arctic cooperation, sustainable development, and expanding economic links. The trip also served as a key diplomatic engagement ahead of the upcoming China-EU summit, with Beijing seeking to reinforce dialogue with some of Europe's most influential Nordic partners. Despite periodic tensions over political and human rights issues, the Nordic region remains an important partner for China in areas such as climate action, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing. Beijing views the region as a valuable gateway for overall engagement with Europe, while seeking to stabilize ties during a time of an increasingly complex geopolitical environment. Wan Makdum, A News, Beijing.
Uganda is deploying medical experts and setting up new Ebola treatment centers in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to help contain the outbreak. The move follows an agreement between the two neighbors to strengthen cross-border cooperation as the virus has infected more than 1,600 people and killed more than 500. Ugandan Congolese health teams say they'll work together to improve treatment, tracing and surveillance, while officials say border restrictions could be eased once the response is fully in place. All right, after the break, we'll continue with the main stories shaping the region. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. And now, U.S. President Donald Trump is meeting with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara on the sidelines of a NATO summit. Let's have a watch.
Different words to describe it. They had very high prices. The prices are coming down. And when the oil comes, you know, the oil is coming way down. The oil dropped by 50% in the last month. And when that comes down, it brings everything else down. No, it's affordability. And they came up with the word affordability. You know, like, I take over, I'm there for one day, and they say, affordability, affordability. I said, I've been here for one. Remember with the eggs, the first day or 2 days later, I have my first news, and they talked about eggs. They said the eggs have gone up 5 times. I've been in office for one day. And I said, well, we'll have to do something. In fact, they told me not to order eggs for the Easter egg hunt at the White House. I should use plastic. I said, we're not doing that. And by the time we came, that was a couple of months later, that happened, and we ordered thousands of eggs. And right now, eggs are way down. The prices are way down, and they're coming down further. So they made up a phony word that they used. They said affordability. They're the ones that caused the affordability prices. I did. but I brought it down. And the oil is coming down very big.
Mr. President, Brent crude is up slightly today on the
A little
announcement
bit, yeah,
that
because we hit them. Anytime we hit them, it goes up a little bit, $2.
is that what you mean? Is that what you meant when you said that we might see oil prices lift a little in
A
response
little
to?
bit, yeah, $2, very little. It's down from, let's say, $135 down to $69. It's dropping, and everything else drops. As oil goes, so goes everything else. But anytime if we hit Iran, oil goes up a little bit. It's all right.
Mr. President, do you think
And you know
Israel...
what we're doing? We're de-nuking it, all right? We're de-nuking Iran. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. All right, one more question?
Sir, do you think Israel should withdraw troops from southern Lebanon?
Well, I talked to Bibi about that. Yeah, I think they're going to. I think they want to. I don't think it's a question of me. I think it's a question they want to. And they're getting along with Lebanon. They're signing deals with Lebanon. First time ever. Marco, talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, we have an agreement that, and it calls, that's the goal at the end. Obviously, Israel's concerned about their security. But the president did a great job bringing those two countries together for the first time
It's a big thing. First time in many years, right?
Step.
So we have a deal with Israel and Lebanon. And yeah, they'll leave. And I think it's going to work out very well. But we're here for this because Syria has turned around as fast as I've ever seen. Well, actually, I turned the United States around very fast, too. I inherited from a man who was not smart, not a smart person. We inherited from the man where they were running this country so badly with the open borders. Think of it, 25 million people allowed into our country. And that includes 11,888 murderers, most of whom murdered more than one person, okay? We got most of them out, or we have them in jail, and we've done a great job. Washington, D.C. now is considered one of the safest cities in the country. If he came to Washington, D.C. a year and a half ago, he'd fear for his life, even though he never feared for his life before, because it was very dangerous. But somehow his territory might have even been a little more dangerous. I joke because, you know, he comes from a rough environment. Would you say that's right, Tom Barrack? Huh? It's sort of funny to think. I don't think he'd be too concerned with Washington a year and a half. But we had a very, very unsafe Washington, D.C., and now it's one of the safest cities in the country. We put the military in. We brought Washington went from being an unsafe to one of the safest cities, and crime is down 94%. We don't play games. And we removed over 5,000 career criminals, many of whom came in through the open borders of Joe Biden. We did the same thing with Memphis, Tennessee. We did the same thing with in Louisiana. You have to speak to the governor, because New Orleans, the crime rate is down 78% in a little while, and they had the best Mardi Gras they've ever had. So we're doing a good job, and he's done a great job too. And I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Jordan's Deputy Prime Minister has been holding high-level talks in Baku, with the two countries agreeing on visa-free travel for ordinary passport holders and closer cooperation in the energy sector. Our correspondent Chimnaz Shakla has more.
Jordan's Deputy Prime Minister and Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Ayman Al-Safari is in Baku on an official visit. Al-Safari held talks with Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov, first in a one-on-one format, later together with their delegations. The discussions focused on expanding bilateral cooperation in political, economic, trade and humanitarian fields, as well as regional and international developments.
We look forward to more cooperation, and I think the exchanges that we're going to have on multiple levels and in multiple fields in the coming few months will definitely result in practical steps that will increase cooperation in trade, investment, tourism, and many other sectors as well.
The visit produced two key outcomes. The two countries signed an agreement abolishing visa requirements for holders of ordinary passports. Azerbaijan and Jordan also signed a memorandum of understanding on cooperation in the energy sector. The ministers also reviewed the cooperation within international organizations and exchanged views on regional security, stressing that the current crisis in the Middle East can only be resolved through political and diplomatic means. Bayramov also briefed his Jordanian counterpart on the Azerbaijan-Armenia normalization process, post-conflict reconstruction in the liberated areas, and ongoing challenges posed by landmines.
I briefed my counterpart on the progress achieved over the past year in advancing peace and the normalization of interstate relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I also shared updates that the number of people who have returned, as well as those living, studying, and working in the region, has now exceeded 90,000. We also agreed that, during one of our upcoming visits, my esteemed colleague and friend and I will travel to the region together and have the opportunity to witness these changes firsthand.
An Azerbaijan economic delegation is also expected to visit Jordan in the near future to explore new opportunities for bilateral cooperation. Earlier in the day, President Ilham Aliyev received al-Safari, invited King Abdullah II to visit Azerbaijan and discussed ways to deepen bilateral ties, including possibility of launching regular direct flights between the countries. I'm Chimnaz Shahlar with Naitik Mehmadov for A News.
Now joining us now is Parvana Valieva, Member of the Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, joining us from Baku. Good to have you. Now, what makes this visit more significant than a routine diplomatic exchange?
Thank you for having me, first of all. Our ties with Jordan are based on mutual principles that friendship and also brotherhood. Azerbaijan and Jordan also have good relationship regarding political, economic, energy, connectivity, investment, humanitarian, and other fields. So we have diplomatic relations. Intergovernmental commission is carrying out its work, and also we have good relationships through interparliamentary cooperation. With Azerbaijan and Jordan have interparliamentary friendship groups. It's very important meeting because two important documents were signed between the parties. One of them was about mutual exemption of visa requirements for the holders of ordinary passports. This is also this will motivate, stimulate tourism and people-to-people communication contracts between two countries. And another document was about memorandum of understanding on energy. This is mainly about renewable energy, having energy efficiency, knowledge sharing, and also sharing clean energy technologies between two countries.
Mm-hmm. Now, the two countries have agreed to remove visa requirements for ordinary passport holders, as you just mentioned. How much could that change business and people-to-people ties?
Yeah, it's very important to eliminate visa requirements for two parties. It's mainly stimulate tourism and, as you said, people-to-people communication contract. And in the long term, it can also stimulate and trigger business activities between two countries. So the people visit each other's countries, and they also explore some ways to have trade, to have business relations in the countries. For example, Azerbaijan and Jordan have joint commission on trade, economic, and technical cooperation. We eliminated the visa requirements for diplomatic and service passport holders as well in the past. And right now, we also eliminated this visa for ordinary passport holders. This has also some important impact on the business activities, increasing the bilateral trade turnover in the long term. That's why it's very important to have this.
All right. Now, the foreign ministers also spoke about joint projects involving Turkey. What advantages could a three-way partnership bring?
Regarding, for example, they also touched upon Azerbaijan-Armenian normalization process. Jordan was the country that also supported Azerbaijan-Armenia peace process during this period. For example, in 2024, as we started delimitation and demarcation of the borders between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So they also expressed, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Jordan expressed his support to this process, as well as right after the Washington Peace Agreement. The Jordan side also, Jordan King, I think, called to our president and congratulated our president about peace process. So we have good ties in political issues. It's also utmost important to highlight that Jordan Senate has adopted a resolution about Khojaly genocide, which is also very important political support for Azerbaijan, and that's why we evaluate, we also value all these ties, relationship, and
Now, speaking about ties and relationships, I wanted to get your opinion about the foreign ministers who also spoke about projects involving Turkey. What advantages could the three-way partnership bring?
Yeah, Azerbaijan is a very strategic partner for Islamic countries as well. Jordan and Turkey also are Islamic countries. Also, we have good relationship within other platforms with Turkey and also Jordan. So we signed a joint memorandum of understanding about energy. It's about clean energy and electricity transmission. So that's why in this project, Turkey also can be involved, and this project can cover, can go through Turkey to Jordan as well.
Now, let's take it over to the Middle East. Could stronger ties with Jordan also strengthen Azerbaijan's engagement with the wider Middle East?
Yeah, of course. During the discussions on regional issues, the sides also reviewed some current security situation in the Middle East. So the ongoing crisis also can, they express that these crisis can only be resolved through political and diplomatic means, and they expressed the support for the continuing dialogue and negotiation process. And in this regard, Turkey also can play important role, and also these two countries can contribute to the continuing dialogue and negotiation process in the Middle East.
That was Parvana Valieva, Member of the Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, joining us from Baku. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Azerbaijan has unveiled its newly acquired JF-17 Thunder Block 3 fighter jets for the first time. It highlights a major milestone in its expanding defense partnership with Pakistan.
Azerbaijan is upgrading its combat aviation with JF-17 Block 3 fighter jets, strengthening Baku's defense links with Pakistan and Turkey. The move marks a shift from Azerbaijan's MiG-29 fleet to a fourth-generation plus multi-role fighter built through Pakistan-China cooperation. Azerbaijan officially presented the JF-17 C Block 3 to President Ilham Aliyev in September 2024, with officials saying the jets had already entered the Air Force arsenal. The fighter is designed for all-weather, day and night missions and is equipped with AESA radar, electronic warfare systems, modern avionics and helmet-mounted display technology. Its key advantage is beyond visual range combat, including compatibility with China's PL-15E air-to-air missile, expanding Azerbaijan's interception and deterrence capability. The aircraft can also support precision strike missions and operate within battlefield networks involving drones, targeting systems, and tactical data links. That makes the JF-17 Block 3 part of Baku's move toward network-centric warfare, where fighters, unmanned systems, and electronic warfare assets operate together. the program also carries geopolitical weight. Azerbaijan has ordered 40 aircraft, making it Pakistan's largest ever defense export contract, according to reports. For Islamabad, the program extends Pakistan's defense industry beyond South Asia. For Azerbaijan, it deepens military cooperation with Pakistan and Turkey, especially as Baku expands interoperability with Turkish drones, systems, and training.
A major green energy project linking the Caspian region to Europe is entering a new phase. Ministers and senior officials from Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary, and Romania have gathered in Baku for the 12th Ministerial and Steering Committee meeting on the Caspian Black Sea Europe Green Energy Corridor. Ayten Shukurova has more.
Europe's next major green energy corridor is moving a step closer to reality. Ministers and senior officials from Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary and Romania have gathered in Baku for the 12th Ministerial and Steering Committee meeting on the Caspian Black Sea Europe Green Energy Corridor. Held under the Strategic Partnership Agreement on the Development and Transmission of Green Energy, the meeting also brought together representatives of the European Union, international financial institutions, transmission system operators and project partners. Azerbaijan's Energy Minister Perviz Shahbazov said the project has now moved from the planning phase to the development and implementation stage, with securing financing and advancing delivery now the shared priorities of the participating countries.
Together with other green energy corridor initiatives connecting Central Asia with the South Caucasus, Turkey and Europe, provides a strong foundation for expanding the project's resource base and supporting its future diversification through additional routes. By the end of next year, Azerbaijan will commission 2 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, supported by $2.6 billion in domestic and foreign investment directed towards renewable energy projects and the strengthening of the national electricity grid. Overall, by 2032, Azerbaijan plans to develop nearly 8 gigawatts of onshore and offshore renewable energy capacity. Exporting a significant share of this clean electricity through 4 international interconnectors is one of our strategic energy priorities.
A joint letter has been signed and addressed to the EU Commissioner for Energy and Housing, seeking to have the project included on the European Union's list of priority cross-border energy infrastructure projects.
The corridor is expected to strengthen regional energy connectivity by linking renewable electricity from the Caspian region with European markets through new cross-border transmission infrastructure. Ayten Shukurova, Zeynalabdin Hasanov, A News.
Now, the South Caucasus is of great importance to Estonia. In an exclusive interview with A News, Estonia's Defense Minister, Hanno Pevkur, told our correspondent, Nora Mustafa, that the opening of Estonia's new embassy would help further strengthen relations with the region.
We've had different times in our relations, but it seems that now when the embassy will be opened, then the relations will be more intense. But let's see. Of course, it's not 1 day or 1 hour decision, so we need to work on that. What are the relations? And then, of course, for us, this region entirely is very important. So we try to have in the region more visibility. Let's see. Of course, it's the main responsibility of the Foreign Ministry, but all the government is working on that.
Now, a sharp warning from Tbilisi to Brussels. Georgia's parliament speaker is pushing back hard against a new European Union proposal that could limit voting rights, including the veto for future member states, saying it risks turning candidate countries into second-class members. Nini Nikolashvili has more from Tbilisi.
Speaking in Belgrade at the first ever conference of speakers of parliament from European Union candidate countries, Georgia's Shalva Papuashvili delivered some of his sharpest remarks yet on the bloc's enlargement process. At the center of his message was a new EU initiative that could restrict voting rights, including the veto for countries joining the bloc in the future. Papuashvili firmly rejected the idea of a two-tiered membership. He told reporters that if the EU changes its voting procedures, those changes need to apply equally to all members, not just to newcomers. He did not hold back on the comparison either, saying that EU should not put itself in a comic situation by turning the phrase all are equal, but some are more equal from Orwellian satire into actual policy. He went further, accusing individual EU states and at times Brussels itself of imposing shifting and unpredictable conditions on candidate countries. He described this as resembling political blackmail rather than genuine partnership and linked the obstacles to internal EU politics, election cycles and long-standing historical disputes between member states. Papuashvili called for enlargement to be strictly merit-based with clear and consistent benchmarks that don't shift depending on the political mood in Brussels. He urged the candidate countries, including Georgia, Serbia, and others across the Western Balkans, to stand together rather than compete with one another. He made the comments at the Belgrade conference, FEMT Shaping Europe's Future Together, which wrapped up with a joint declaration emphasizing unity among candidate status. The European Union has not publicly responded yet. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A News.
All right, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.